So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's been amazing 2 days. This is the LEAP FICCI FRAMES-LEAP conference that we started. This is the first edition, and in light of the very fact that we have the National Education Policy 2020, we would like to refer in our industry, something which is pre-COVID and post-COVID reference right now. We would like to call it pre-NEP and post-NEP, the National Education Policy, because the National Education Policy actually gives a lot of leeway, a lot of structural changes, and also gives us an opportunity to integrate into the school education, the university education, as well as looking into the research in media, entertainment, design, events, and sports industry. We have been having these deliberations with the policymakers, with the universities, vice chancellors, with industry leaders, with the chairman of AICTE and many other regulators for the last 2 days, and we are actually wanting to form a group of great contributors to this industry and look at arriving at a level playing field with many other verticals which have been established over the last few years in the Indian education system, but where we actually got left out in terms of creative arts, performing arts, design, and the sports and athlete ecosystem. Having said that, some of the emerging areas were discussed today. We had a first session on sowing seeds early because we want to really look at the schools. We also had a sports session, and then we had unusual, unconventional careers like the comedians and the YouTubers and few others, which was an amazing session. AVGC and virtual reality, augmented reality, extended reality, and the mixed reality is something that we drive within FICCI as well. So we wanted to ensure that we have the right minds present, because most of the audience for this conference are the educators and the policymakers. So all the people who have invested into schools, into private education, into universities are actually going to watch this. And that's one of the reasons that the responsibility of all the stakeholders that are there on this panel is to ensure that we exhibit and we tell them what are the needs and how we want to integrate. And that's why we have even Colin and Diwakar who have been at the helm of this education in a very big way. They understand India too. Anil is doing a fabulous job. But I would like to introduce Munjal. Munjal actually has been one of the oldest friends that I had ever since I've come into animation industry. We both have worked together for the last 2 decades, looking at pushing the agenda of animation. Very meticulous thinker and an executor that we have in him. Apart from being a co-chair at FICCI Animation Gaming, he is one of the co-founders of Graphiti, who has produced several shows. Some of the shows which are very dear to me because it's about arts and the folk art forms, Krishna and Batley Boy, and many, many more. But more so, having pushed the cause of forming the National Center of Excellence, looked at working together on the DD kids and many reforms that we did, as well as formed policies in several states. He has never said no for anything that we asked him for, and he always came up with very innovative ideas. So much so, we also shared a lot of responsibilities at the Media and Entertainment Skill Council as the governing council member, and a huge contribution to doing a wonderful series called Manthan, introducing creative arts, performing arts, and design technologies to various educational institutions in the South India, Eastern India, Western India, and the Northern India. We are still to do the Eastern India Summit with MHRD. And who else would have actually done this together with such an extreme and extremely well, experienced, and a lovely panelist and all friends that I have on this particular panel. Over to you, Munjal, and I really wish all you guys all the best for a wonderful session that we would like to hear from you. Thanks.
Thanks, Ashish. Thanks for those generous words. And yes, I think we have miles to go before we rest. And I think the NEP has really kind of set the tone. I think much needed good news in these COVID times. So really excited. And yes, as an industry, I think something that we've been lobbying for a very long time. Some of it is now finally starting to take shape. So super excited about it. And let's dive in. We have an amazing list of panelists today with us. Brilliant minds, experienced people, years or decades of production experience as well. So we have Mr. Anil Pant, Managing Director and CEO of Aptech, Mr. Diwakar Gandhi, Vice President, International Business Development Center for Entertainment Arts, Vancouver, Mr. Hanif Mohammed, CEO of Asian Institute of Design, Mr. Pankaj Khandpur, Creative Director, Tata Elxsi and Yashraj, one of the veterans of our industry and true pillars. Mr. Colin, Giles, head the school animation and VFX Vancouver Film School, and Jesh Krishnamurthy, founder and CEO of Anibrain. So we have an amazing lineup. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us today. And it's COVID or no COVID, I think we are all in a very, very dynamic industry that is constantly changing and evolving. And I think one of the things that kind of personally excited me about this space was the fact that there is always something new. Every day that you get up, there's something new happening, new technology, new software, new production pipelines coming up. And that always kind of kept us on our toes, or rather still keeps us on our toes. And even like looking at Pankaj, even now he's super excited. Even now he's dabbling with newer things, so he's an inspiration to all of us, So I think let's kind of just dive in and start looking at kind of quickly just to understand that how has COVID impacted all of us, and more particularly, how do we see it impacting the future? So I'll start with Pankaj. Pankaj, can you please dive in?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Munjal. That was very clever of you, though I must tell you my white hair belies my age. I'm younger than I look. But thanks for that compliment. I'm not sure if it was one. But anyway, how does COVID impact us? Well, actually COVID has been a double-edged sword, the way I see it. And I'm sure a lot of people agree. When it first started, of course, we didn't know how to deal with it. But now I think there are a lot of sort of benefits that we're beginning to see in terms, I mean, not COVID, obviously, but the fact that it has forced us to change the paradigm, the way we work and the way we think, and everything sort of stood on its head. And once you start dealing with it, you find that you can actually, I find personally that I'm far more productive operating out of my home office and managing, what it is that I need to do in various studios and so on. So it works for me, and I think it has begun to work for a lot of people.
Yes.
Now the trick is to figure out how to, now that we're learning to deal with it, I think the trick is to figure out how to make it work for us. I think we are at that cusp to figure that out.
Sure. Jesh?
Yeah, I fully agree with Pankaj, except on the fact that about his white hair. But I think in a way, I've been thinking a lot about what this does to an artist. Okay, what this does to an artist. And in the Indian context, we're very kind of social. We want to ask the next guy or the lady sitting next to us as to, okay, how do you, we like that way of working. And I think that this is going to change the mindset of the Indian artist. Okay, because they're sitting at home, they're on their own, and they're going to have to, they're needing to figure stuff out, Munjal.
Yes.
Right? And on their own, with less communication happening, because it's just not that easy to keep calling somebody and saying, see my screen. It's not possible. So I think for me, this is really where the Indian or the Indian artist is going to start to shine, because they're going to they're going to have to be forced into a place where they're going to have to make more decisions than they were taking earlier on their own. And I think so. This is really fantastic as a hard entry point into the world of, working alone, right? Taking decisions alone and figuring stuff out alone. So I think that even what Anil was saying at the start, and one of the things that we all face is that ability to take decisions that I have struggled with initially when I came to India, and it was hard to get a decision out of an Indian artist. I think this is going to be a really great step in that direction. Other than that, it's a new world in so many ways. So it's also a level playing field for so many people today. It's leveled the playing field. A lot of the gaps that may have been there because of whatever, I think the gaps have reduced. So I think that it's going to be I think that it is a double-edged sword, and I've pretty much focused on the psychology of the artist and what it's going to do to them in this time.
Right. I think one of the things that I feel we will all miss is that conversation in the hallway, the chai sutta break, and discussing a problem, having a smoke break and saying, okay, this is my problem, and you discuss it with the colleague and come back and with some thoughts and ideas. I think that kind of a social interaction right now is definitely something that we will miss, and I think that's something for social engineers to look at, that in times of Zoom calls, how do we kind of allow for that, So I think one of the things that many times what we do is on calls within our company is, once we finish with our usual business, at the studio, we just hang out and chat and just gossip. And that definitely seems to help, and I find that stress levels of people have gone down, because you could do that. Because given our profession, we spend more time with our colleagues and with our respective families. So we are right now missing our work family in a way. So that's a new for us. So, but I think also, I think from a skilling standpoint and from an education standpoint, I think a new skill is work from home. You are expected to be more focused. You are expected to plan yourself better. There is no supervisor sitting over your head, So if you are not super focused, you will deter, your productivity will suffer, Also, you are no longer sitting on a server inside your studio. So you need to plan well in terms of your data upstream, downstream. And these are some of the things that one has to start thinking of. And again, for someone who's not used to that kind of a work discipline, it's something that they have to be groomed for. So, so I'm now going to move over to the people who are the education specialists on a panel and open it up for them as to how do they see this changing, or are they addressing this new skill of work from home? Anil, would you care to dive in this one?
So, when you talk about COVID, I mean, I've heard a lot of things being talked about COVID. And frankly, I think we've reached a stage in India where a very nice WhatsApp forward I got, it says we've reached the stage of dekha jayega.
Right.
I mean, it's there to stay. I mean, life has to go on.
Absolutely.
So like they say that, I mean, I'm a firm believer in the old school of thought, which says that, every crisis opens up new opportunities.
True.
Now, if you look at the traditional model of skilling, the entire pedagogy was around, apart from teaching the skill, it was around how does a child learn how to work in teams? How does a child benefit from peer learning? How does a child learn how to deal with rejection? How does a child learn how to deal with criticism? How does a child learn how to work under pressure of deadlines? And the entire pedagogy in our at Aptech was, apart from the skill, teaching a kid on these lines, so that when this kid goes into the workspace, he or she is totally employable.
Right.
Now, the skilling part of it is the simplest thing, Munjal. I mean, in 4 months, we've delivered something like 1.7 million hours of student learning. We've even managed to place 500 odd students in various studios who are still hiring. during COVID time, and it's all work from home. What we all have to go back to the drawing board is, firstly, the question that we need to ask ourselves is, are these skills, life skills that I talked about, whether it's peer learning or whether it's learning how to work in a team or working under deadline pressure or dealing with criticism. Now, you can teach all this in a classroom. There's a defined pedagogy for it. There's a methodology by which you put a kid under pressure and force them to deal with these realities. How do we do that in the online world? And honestly, as an educator, this is one thing that, we're still struggling, because it took us almost about 10, 12 years of research and investment to develop the pedagogy that we had for a center-driven training model.
Right.
The second thing that we look at is a lot of our students come from lower income backgrounds. Now, those of us who are on this panel, or those of us, or those are the people who are probably attending this conference, will not even understand the pain of an auto driver's son or a maid's child. I mean, I get students from that background, and they're incredibly talented, and some of them turn out to be incredibly successful once they get that break. What happens to these children? They don't have access to a device. They don't have access to stable internet connectivity. So we're trying to figure out, can we create virtual labs on which I can access even from a dumb device? So this has definitely been an opportunity, but it's been a very big disruptor in the way sort of education is taking place. One of the biggest fears that I have, and the fact is that the media and entertainment business in India, I always used to say that this is the one space which is probably recession proof. Now you look at these COVID times, a lot of people, if I had to buy that car, I won't buy that car. I have to buy that piece of jewelry for the wife. Probably I won't buy that. But am I going to consume more content on Netflix? Am I going to consume more content on various platforms or TV or whatever, my laptop, my iPad? Damn right I am. And if you look at homes today, every device is a screen, and content that is available is completely curated. So you've got content available for children from 3 years of age to curated content for 70, 80 years old in terms of Asta channels of the world, right?
Right.
Now, we today are at a stage where 10 years ago, we were probably getting $10 per frame kind of job work into India. And today, almost every studio worth its name, I mean, almost every Oscar movie, especially animation and VFX, the work has been done, probably a large part of the work has been done in India. If I look at the last 5 years, in all the Oscar winning movies, we've had students of ours who've had credits in that. Now, what's going to happen to the pipeline of talent for studios is a challenge that I think will be faced by all of us, because parents are probably going to hesitate to send their kids to centers. And it's probably going to move to the online model. But in the online model, in the online world, at this point of time, an organization like ours, the challenge that we foresee is, will we be able to churn out the same kind of employable students that we were able to in the pre-COVID world, using the center model where people would come in and learn the way they were supposed to learn? That's my 2 bits, Munjal.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Anil. Hanif, your thoughts?
First of all, thank you very much, Munjal. It's a pleasure being a part of this esteemed panel. Yes, COVID-19, the world is a different place. There will be visible changes across a range of behaviors. Understandably, the impact is on the pandemic is also on education sector. It's a disruptive time. Students went offline. It was difficult to reach them. Yes, we have to prepare ourselves. Everyone had to prepare ourselves to be on online education, into classrooms. Blended learning approaches have come out. And the process of offering students to powerful learning experience. How Anil said, I completely agree with what he said about how do you get these cognitive skills and transferable skills in the students. Those were the bigger tasks. Blended learning has become a reality. There is a lot of teacher training had to happen, because for them it's a new reality. They had to learn these skills, online teaching skills are different to what in class. So they had to adapt. We had to adapt with the challenges of the students not having proper connectivity. The machines are not very powerful. So our assessments had to be thought over in how do we have the same complexity, but how do we use the existing resources? Like, let it be artistry. What we were thinking, how do we get the student to use the limited, just the phone camera and pencil sketches, take a picture, evaluate. These are different problems that we faced, but yes, we have adapted quite well. Yes, it's going to be like even if the colleges are going to start in October, November, whatever, the parents will not be comfortable in sending the students at least till January is what we feel. So what do we do? Do we completely go online, or till then there could be some students, online learning may not. Yes, in the beginning, online learning was very effective in the sense because they had plenty of time. They had nothing to do during the lockdown. They had to spend. They had to do something different. So they attended the portfolios were better. They attending classes. We had almost 90% to 95% attendance, like never before, because they had to do something other than just sitting at home and watching TV, maybe. But yes, blended format is evolving. A lot of how do we get the assess? I mean, how do we reduce the? The assessments had to be different because, like I said, the connectivity could be a problem. They would not have, but at the same time, the same complexity. How do we handle with that? So we've been thinking, and one thing, what we did was a three-pronged approach: strengthen staff to student interaction. How do we do that? We have more online classes, in the sense, have live classes. We have recorded sessions on our Moodle, so that they come ready to the class. Then also we have once a week on every module. We started having doubt clearing sessions. Then we have a checkpoint. We had surveys conducted on periodically. There are plenty of tools available for that, and to see how the teaching and learning, how effective has that been. Also, what we had to concentrate was on student to student interaction. How do we do that? Have competitions, have quizzes, have art sessions, because and collaborative assessments, collaborative projects, so that some transferable skills can also be embedded through that. How do we do that? This has been our main approach so far. Yes, there have been plenty of challenges, but one thing effectively we've been able to do is, like, we are part of something called the Global Observatory, where there are a lot of European universities and some eminent institutions from India part of it. So we've been exchanging notes and trying to have teacher training, to see what are the kind of tools, what are the different kinds of technologies that can use, what are the pedagogy in online education. We basically, this group of universities, we have been part of Erasmus Plus funded projects. So in our first project, which was Meal is more on online learning and flip learning, we had developed some strategies on which we could take it forward during this pandemic period. And now employability and how to give internationalized content has been our emphasis throughout. Due to that, now we have come up, like we are talking about, we have Indian partners like IIT Madras, then we have IISc Bangalore, we have Symbiosis University, International University from Pune, Amrita University from the European side. We have KTH Sweden, TU Berlin, Lisbon University. We've been trying to develop internationalized content where whatever Anil was talking about, how do we embed these transferable skills into online? May not be online, I think the blended format is here to stay, and that is where the future is. may not be online because there could be a lot of fatigue, there's got to be a lot of interest level coming down, but blended, how do we improvise every day is something that we've been clearly working on. Thank you.
Thanks. So, Colin, I think one of the factors is particularly in India, the challenge always is formalizing the education in this space. And I think again, Vancouver Film School has been doing a lot of good work. There are a lot of foreign institutions have done a lot of good work, and the course offering has been, offered, which allows you, and things like credits, like that don't exist today in India. So I would want you to talk about, some insight in what is the education part today for a student in Canada, when he goes from, let's say, once he finishes his school and then he goes on for higher education, how flexible is the system, and I think maybe that's where there are some lessons that we can learn in terms of how you manage to structure that entire offering. Both you and Diwakar can, kind of expand on that. Colin, you can start first, please.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think we were just discussing before we went live here about the idea of looking from, before you come to higher education, reaching downwards rather than just focusing on post, experience, especially here at VFS or really any institution that's training. I think we've noticed a lot of young people who are coming into our school who are well adept at the technology already. They have access to it now in many forms, whether it's off the shelf or whether it's open source places like Blender. The students are very adept at it. They're also knowledgeable about the pipeline. When I went to school, it was a mystery how this was. It seemed like sorcery, but now it's just common and everybody knows about it. So I think the discussion has already changed from day one. And also as students are looking at different schools around the world, a lot of the younger people coming out of, our traditional high school model are well adept. So we're actually finding ourselves building collaborative models with high schools throughout Canada, and really helping them train students in multiple levels, not just in the technology, because the technology is always going to be changing and the technology is here, and the technology is accessible. But what the students we're finding now is we're also having to prepare the way they think, and the way they problem solve and the way they work together. And I think a lot of that stuff is trickling down into high schools, which is really, really important. I think the challenge that we found, now with COVID and as part of our new normal, and certainly here 6 months into this situation, we've moved away from being reactive and now moving into proactive, and learning from this situation. And I think the biggest thing that we found is certainly the younger the student, the more adept they are at changing with this situation. And I think the biggest challenge for us as a school is we no longer have walls. We don't have classrooms with walls where we can manage the situation and we can directly interact with a group of 30 students or 20 students or even 100 students in a lecture. Whereas the younger the student, they're used to not having walls. High schools have already been changing the way that they maneuver. And I think one of the things we found that's successful is taking a lot of the education that we're doing and almost delivering it silently, allowing students to kind of find their way through it. And then we come together in small groups and we discuss it. And as instructors, I think, that's one of the things, we're talking about students and we're talking about future professionals, but as instructors ourselves, we've also had to adapt and change. And as industry professionals, we understand what that means on the day-to-day job, but what does it mean socially? What does it mean for our community as a student body, as a staff body? So a lot of those challenges are now being shared with younger students, and we're actually learning a lot from our own students. So we've become great listeners. A lot of our discussions are happening on Discord, which is something I wasn't very familiar with at all until 6 months ago. And now I can set up a Discord channel for you at the click of a button. So, I think Hanif, you mentioned it too, this idea of blended model. I think this is something that, again, high school students are used to this. They're used to doing homework at night at home at the kitchen table. They're used to coming back into the classroom, and that classroom is going to have pods and different ways of maneuvering. So you know, I think what's our challenge is now is allowing that kind of thought process, and it's a long process. It starts from, you know, even as early as grade 10 or grade 9 here in kind of the North American model, into your mid-20s, where you're repeating the same process every single day. You know, it's an adaptability, it's the ability to be like sort of proactive as a student and as a professional. Is what is coming up. I'm going to prepare myself for that, so that when we are all together, we might only be together for a day, we might be together for 1 week out of 3. I mean, who knows what it's going to look like in the next couple of years, but it's definitely going to be in matters of months and years. And the beauty of the younger students, or our ability to communicate with high schools, is they're going to be prepared for this world no matter what. And I think it goes beyond animation, visual effects, and games. You know, I know that's our profession and that's our expertise, but I think it's a social exercise right now. And it's one without walls, and it's one without borders, and it's one with mixed languages, and that's the exciting part for me, is being able to learn from this younger generation, and allow them to kind of guide us through this, because they're the ones who are 10 steps ahead of us. I mean, we haven't adapted TikTok to our pipeline yet, but I'm sure it will come at some point.
Right. So Diwakar, you can just take over from Colin. But what I also wanted you to talk about is, you know, one of the things in India is what we are very good at is core skills. You know, like math. You know, you'll find students here who are very, very good at math. You know, but when you look at new age professions like animation, visual effects, and gaming, it's not just one particular aspect or one particular skill. A lot of it is kind of augmented skills of different facilities. You know, so when you look at some of the best people in the animation gaming sector, they have a great mix of creative and technical skills. You know, what I want you to, or what I would like to understand from you is, how do you kind of look at this and groom people for something like that? You know, like in India, the one of the things is that if you're a science student, all right, or if you're studying medicine, you potentially can never look at taking up an art class. You know, so you would, once you are on a particular stream, it's a one-way track. You cannot digress, right? Whereas we are in a profession where you are constantly changing. You know, I mean, look at the way animation production or gaming production, you know, has evolved over the years. You know, so I'm saying that, how do you deal with that? I think that's a very vital point for educationists today who are listening in to us. You know, that how do you start offering this? How do you make this entire education model dynamic enough for a student to dabble with it till he finds his feet?
Well, first of all, good evening, everyone in India, and the panelists, of course, and good morning, Colin. Good to see you, of course. You had to wake up pretty early in the morning as well. Good. You know, I want to actually echo Mr. Pant's comment. Never lose the opportunity of a crisis. That's what I truly believe in, right? And in this situation that we find ourselves, we don't simply want to frantically struggle to restore the status quo, because the status quo wasn't operating at an effective level, and certainly wasn't serving all our students fairly across the board, whether it be in India, whether it be in the West here. So that's what I truly believe. There are things that we can learn in the messiness of adapting to this crisis, which has sort of revealed profound disparities in students' access to support and also the opportunities that are provided to them. We should be asking, you know, how do we make our school education and students' development, their systems, more individually responsive to the needs of our students? That's what the question should be. Why not construct a system that meets children and the students, of course, where they and gives them what they need from, you know, not just from inside the school but also outside. And, you know, how do we make them successful? That's a challenge for an educationist in general. So I think we should really be taking an opportunity to end the one-size-fits-all factory model of education that we have. And, you know, yes, it is changing to a certain extent, but at the same time, you know, it's there. You know, everybody, that whole model of, you know, my son or daughter should be a doctor, scientist, or, you know, a lawyer. It still exists no matter what, but it's changing. But again, you know, this is an opportunity to make that big leap right now, you know, with this online education that we are going to be offering, whether it be hybrid model, blended model, or, you know, fully online. So this is an opportunity that we should really really take on and sort of work towards. Again, you brought up the question of how do we sort of change this model, and we're doing that right now quite effectively ourselves. I really take pride in the Center for Entertainment Arts being one of the first schools in Vancouver that sort of jumped upon this online opportunity. We were shut down March 13th. We were already prepared for it a month in advance, 4 weeks advance. We already knew that this was going to come. We were talking very effectively to the government here, and we embarked on it. We sent out about 160 computers to our students that were sent to their houses, to their individual homes, and they were all set up and provided training as to what online would look like 4 weeks in advance. So that happened very, very quickly for us, and our students have been really happy in terms of what has been provided online to them thus far. We've done 2 terms already online with about 150 students, 160 students doing online, and now we have one of the largest intakes actually. Even though we had a COVID crisis obviously on, we have one of the largest intakes right now in September at about 120 odd students starting again, new students who are coming on to September, and they're all fully online all over the world. So students are sort of taking upon this thing that, yes, I want to study online. I do want to go on and do this and move forward with my life because, life is not going to stop. So that realization is there at the same time. And students are definitely coming on board. And also, again, as I said, this is an opportunity to change the model of education. Parents are also realizing now that, the dreams that students have, 99%, again, talking particularly about India, 99% of our students are from a science background, an engineering background, and they're coming to our visual effects, animation, game development programs, because that's what their passion really was. And then even parents started realizing, why do I need to force my son or daughter to be in an industry, be an engineer, when they really don't enjoy it? And their original passion was always, I want to be I want to be drawing, painting, or sculpting, or be in the animation industry. So this is what we've really seen. We've seen amazing students come out into our programs who always wanted to be in this industry. So again, this is that opportunity for us to reflect upon, to obviously go out to the parents and tell them that there is an industry here, and this industry is to stay. The boom of Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney now, of course, this is what people need to really realize, that there is an industry beyond the normal engineering, lawyers, and doctors, right? So there's that as well. So this is where we can really shine, and we as a group together can come and sort of make that work. Yeah.
Right. So I think the question is at a certain level now is, given that we have such a massive shortage that we anticipate in terms of our workforce, right? One opportunity always is for students who come from relatively well-off families, is for them to go abroad, Canada or the US or UK, to study, be it gaming or whatever passion they want to pursue. But that's not really possible for every one of them, right? And I think there are two aspects to this. One is that the average student today who is passionate may not have the means to go to Canada, to study. Number one. In India, that challenge becomes even more critical as someone who's, let's say, in rural India, and he is absolutely passionate about this and he wants to come into this field, right? So how does one do that? And I think that's where perhaps question is, when you look at India, I mean, both Diwakar and Colin, when both of you look at India, what kind of opportunities do you see for partnerships or with universities? How can universities engage with you? Yeah. So
take first. Do you want me to start first? Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Yeah. Well, I mean, and certainly, I know Diwakar's been at the tip of the spear for this type of cross-border collaboration with institutions across India. Yeah, Vancouver Film School does have a relationship with DICE in Mumbai, and we set up a campus there last year, and are now into year 2 of that relationship, and it's been going really well. But honestly, it's a pebble into the ocean. It's such a small part of really what's possible in India. And I think even before this COVID situation, obviously through technology and through our ability to converse and share ideas, consume content that we're all watching kind of at the same time. That's the beautiful thing about streaming, is even though it's not scheduled, the fact that it isn't scheduled and it is accessible at any time, it means we're all kind of watching and sharing the same content as well. I think what we're seeing now, and I know you're certainly seeing it there at home, is a huge opportunity for stories that are being authored and created 100% in India. And the studios that are, have been perhaps doing service work for decades before that for maybe, Western audiences, are now converging all together and doing multiple different versions of different projects. So I think what we're finding is it's the opportunity now to go online is now you don't have to have a campus. The campus is out here somewhere, and it's much easier to bring people together from all over the world. And that's allowing emerging voices. It's allowing for new storytellers. And that was something that was obviously happening slowly. Now it's been fast forwarded through this situation. So we're excited to just be part of a global school, be part of a global audience and a global community that can share ideas and share ways of working. And we've learned a lot from our partners in India, and they're learning a lot from us. But our students are also sharing ideas with their students, and our staff are working with their staff. So it's been a really interesting sort of collaborative effort. And I can only see, like I said, we've only just scratched the surface. It's the very tip of an iceberg that I think is going to be revealed. And it's the great equalizer, as someone said earlier. Now everyone can come to the table no matter where you are. And I think the investments in technology in terms of internet access, internet reliability, certainly a lot of investments from massive tech companies doing satellite accessibility, these types of things are going to be a massive shift. And I think a lot of that stuff is going to be fast forwarded just simply because we aren't going to be able to move around the world the way we were. I was supposed to be in Mumbai 3 weeks ago, and I'm not even sure I'll be able to come next summer. But I've interfaced more with our partners in India in the past 6 months than I would have otherwise. So and then now I'm here talking to all of you fine folks. So it's a pretty wild difference, and I think now the opportunity is staring us right in the face.
So I'm going to ask Anil to step in here. Anil, you do a lot of work, at the grassroots level as well with rural education. So how are you looking at that opportunity of offering world-class education to someone sitting in a remote part of India?
So I was listening with a lot of interest to the stuff that Colin and Diwakar were speaking. 150 computers being sent out to students. Brilliant, Diwakar. I mean, hats off to you for doing that. The challenge that an organization like mine faces is I have about 30,000 students across 20 countries. And, you hit the nail on the head when you talked about rural India. Nasik is probably a tier 2 or a tier 3 town.
Right.
One of my largest centers.
I'm specifically using the word rural India.
Yeah. So Nasik is probably as let's classify it as rural India. We've got 800 students there in our center, right? And these kids, they all crave the latest in terms of learning. And Munjal, for us, we're very passionate about, our logic is that if I have 30,000 students, I can't give individual attention. All that I can do is ensure that my content creation and my pedagogy will ensure that the same content and a very, very similar style of delivery is given to all the 30,000 kids. So firstly, we have been using technology for the last 10 years. All our content is digitized today. One of the biggest challenges that we faced was, how do I teach a 3-dimensional art like 3D animation or VFX on a 2D object? Your computer screen is a 2D object. Your book is a 2D screen, right? It's a flat surface. So for the last 2 years, we've actually introduced augmented reality in our entire course. So the entire 2-year program is run on augmented reality, where if you've seen Iron Man and you see Robert Downey playing around with those things, our students do that. They're able to create the character, they're able to turn it, they're able to see where the light is coming from, what is the lighting effect, what is the rigging, how does this object move. So we've already invested in this. I mean, it took a lot of money in terms of investing in technology, but we did this about 2 years ago. Now, what we found is that the kid in rural India is as adept at adapting to this technology. The difference is that we are using technology as a tool to teach,
Right,
as opposed to using technology as a platform for teaching. I still don't have answers to whether online is the way ahead. I don't know. Online is a tool that I'm using today to reach out to as many of my students as who have access to computers or the internet. So even today, we are able to reach out to about 25,000 students. So technology by itself means nothing, Munjal. I mean, it's how you use this technology.
absolutely.
And in my opinion, I completely agree with what one of the panelists said earlier. It's going to become where, you know, you teach the theory of it completely online. A large part of the practicals, we can create virtual labs where students can log in and learn. But there will still have to be an element of classroom learning, because otherwise you'll never be able to put that entire pedagogy of peer learning, working under deadlines, working under pressure, how to deal with rejection, how do you work in a team. I mean, you know, you can always create virtual teams, but it's not the same thing as working next to each other in a classroom. So it will be a mix. I hope that answers the question, Munjal.
Good degree. You know, see, one of the things that, like, when we do our productions of Krishna and Baltiboy, which is a animated movie series based on folk arts of India. And as an experiment, what we did is that we actually farmed out work to a lot of the studios which are not in the main cities. And we worked with a lot of, close to about 30 different studios. And what we found is that their level of commitment and passion is really, really high. All they need is a good mentor. And I think we kind of use that to see whether that as a model is really possible, and whether we can multiply our workforce without actually trying to ramp up our own strength within our own four walls of a studio. And that seems to have worked very well. So my question to Pankaj and Jesh, you know, given that our industry is going to need really massive numbers, you know, of people, what is that disruptive model that you see where we can, in what fashion can we, you know, groom people on a scale that we all need? And again, level of skilling really needs to be up there. You know, so when on one side we have really, really passionate kids who want to come into this space, the other side, the challenges that Anil speaks about, you know, sitting in a remote part of India, they may not have access to that. So how do we, you know, how do we kind of address this? You know, any thoughts?
You know, we've all spoken a lot about the skilling, and like Anil said, the skilling is the easiest part of it. And
Right.
we've also spoken about the technology and how to use it, etc., etc. These are not issues. These are things that will automatically flow from the situation that you're in. And like someone mentioned, it's an opportunity. You will use that opportunity. But I mean, thin clients, zero clients, you can connect to your server, you can use the cloud. All of that is possible from home. So it's not a big deal. None of it is a big deal. We are already doing it, and we are quite comfortably doing it. The issue really, which I don't have an answer for, is when you bring in a new intern into your system, how do you, I found that what does not translate well across broadband is things like culture, philosophy. The organization that you work for has a unique DNA. How do you transmit that to a young, fresh intern who joins you? How do you mentor him? It's almost impossible to mentor somebody.
The software aspect of it.
But you know, it's I've been in the business, Munjal, 40 years. I know you will say it's too long, but one of the things that I've learned is that getting skills in is not a big deal. Eventually you will learn them. I mean, it's one piece of software. It's how do you apply that? The application of mind is completely missing, I find.
Right.
I find that thinking skills are not pushed at all. And what actually happens is that you're very good with the tool, but you're not very good at figuring out alternative solutions to using that tool, which is business. Yes. which is really what our business is all about. And finally, and the most important is, how do you build loyalty? You build it because of your culture. You build it because of your work ethics and your ethos. I don't know. I don't have any answers to that. And to me, that is the biggest challenge that faces us, is how do you bring this whole, especially fresh kids. The seniors, no problem. They'll manage, they'll be fine, and so on. But how do you mentor somebody and so on? I'd love to hear some answers on that.
Jesh?
Yeah, I think we're touching upon the really core of what you know, what's been a pain point for so many of us over so many years, you know. But I think that what I would like to tell the Indian artist is they're sitting on such an amazing opportunity today. You know, it's just such a great future.
Yeah.
And I think that it's time for us to inspire the right people to come in and join the industry and change their mindsets. And I think also the biggest part for me is that we've got to get the bright sparks, but we've also got to make them believe. You know, the biggest thing that I think maybe Pankaj has done or I have done is just sit with an artist and just make them believe that, listen, you can do this, you know, and you've got it in you. And it's not about the skill, it's not about that. It's just about figuring out the quickest way, let's say from Dadar to Pune, you know, that smartness. We just need that street smartness in the talent that's coming in. So I think for me, the biggest thing, Munjal, has been the belief that an Indian artist now needs to acquire, because otherwise we're just pushing buttons, you know. And I think we're all wanting to take that next step and that giant leap, and I think India is poised for that. So I think that we've really just got to empower our young people a lot sooner than we do in our current system, and give them the breaks and give them the opportunities, and also give them opportunities to fail. I think this is something we're not very good at, is that we consider failure to be a problem, and therein stops all our experimentation with life, right? I mean, forget animation or VFX or whatever. For me, I work with somebody in finance who I consider an artist. You know, he's an artist. And so it's not about what you do, and it's about that different flavor that you bring to whatever it is that you do. So I think that uniqueness needs to be brought back into us. The pride in our culture, the pride in who we are, the belief that an Indian artist can compete at that global level is what we now need to instill in them, because really they're ready, you know, they're ready, but they don't have the confidence. They're ready, but they just kind of, you know, on the fence. And we've got to just push them over and say, okay, drown, you know, just go. Pankaj is nodding his head. What's he saying? I can't hear you, Pankaj.
I'm going to interrupt for a second, and I agree completely with you, Jesh. And the key to all this is nothing to do with COVID, really, if you think about it.
Absolutely. Yes. I think COVID or no COVID, I think we have to move on and we have to find solutions to our problems, you know. So, in fact, one of the things that I find, you know, is more often that there is this tendency in artists to defer creative decisions upwards, you know. And I find there is a lot of lack of ownership, because if I take a decision and if it is wrong, then what? And I think this is a very fundamental part of saying it's okay to be wrong. It's okay, because we are in a business where there is no right answer to a creative solution. No, I mean, why do you like a certain shade of red and why I don't like that certain, you know, shade of red can never be quantified. It's a personal, it's an artistic choice, and you may or you may not disagree. And a lot of the time, it's about us pitching an idea and convincing people around. You know, it's that idea of selling. You're always pitching, whether you are pitching to a network at the highest level or you're pitching a shot to your senior. You know, it's about taking ownership and saying, yes, this is what, you know, I want to. This is what I believe this should be done. And I find that some of these aspects, you know, of taking ownership, you know, creative ownership or creative leadership, you know, is again something which needs to be taught, you know. And you know, again, I'm very interested to hear, you know, on this, you know, that Hanif, maybe you want to take a stab at this. How do you teach this? You know, that how do you teach, you know, taking onus of your creative decisions or even technical decisions and saying, yes, this is the way to go about it. And it's okay. I think that instilling that confidence that it's all right, to take a stand and at least put your point of view.
I'm really glad. One way you look at it, when we started not so long, 12 years back, as a gaming institute, that time there was only animation was taught as a part-time program. And that's when we came in and said that we need this to be a full-time career, a full-time program. And then this has to be a 40 effort hour program. Industry, there was a huge gap between the available resource and what is the industry requirement. And then we worked very closely. I come with a education background that I set up a university college outside of India. And I came in and I saw the space and there was a huge opportunity. But then we also partnered with University of Wolverhampton then to quality assure a program. And so that we are following all the internationally accepted academic standards. That time when the conversations, what I'm trying to say is like how conversations have changed from in the last, the short time. That time is like, how do I get an industry ready? Only technical skills. I don't care about what he thinks, how he thinks, how's the culture, and is he good at this particular software? Can he adapt to this particular software? And when we developed a 1.5 year program with the university help, and which was very required for this industry, and the industry was not willing to wait. How can you make that shorter? Can you make this in 6 months? And yes, it progressed. It progressed from that. Yes, we've been very lucky. We've been very working very closely with the industry, and the studios has always supported us. Let it be with visiting faculty, let it be with being on an advisory, on a board of studies, sharing projects, whatever. We've always been lucky. But that time we were a very boutique institution, not too many, 100, 150, 200 students getting out, being able to place them well. But yes, then the conversation kept changing as the requirements also changing. They wanted a little more holistically educated professionals. Then they started giving us such inputs and things like that. Now it's gone. Today we're talking about how do we take it mass? How do we take it to the rural India? How do we take it to corners of the Northeast or the Kerala and things like that? And here also, we're trying to work with, MESC, Media and Entertainment Skill Council. Mohit has been very proactive and trying to see how we can at least basic education, can we take this into online space with some blended mode once in a while. It's a 6 months program. Maybe every module can have some online classes online. I mean to say live classes. Can we do that? Actually, if you ask me, COVID has opened out a lot of opportunities. Even if you ask me to address these kind of problems. Yes. Now even if you're looking at from a 6 months program, industry is willing to wait for a 4-year bachelor degree program because that's the kind of thing. We will be able to embed these kind of skills to an extent in this. I feel even the NEP would answer a lot of these issues because this is just not a commercial education or the last bit or the finishing school who would be able to inculcate these kind of skills that we go. Yes, we can introduce this as in a workshop model, or it can be into an extent. These things has to come from a school education, and I believe the new education policy might address some of those issues. But then it is always. One thing good now, COVID, like if I want we are in Bangalore, to get a faculty just from the next road to here before would have been a problem with the kind of traffic jams and things like that we have. Industry interaction is easier possible. International content is much possible. To have an international faculty to take a couple of sessions for all the students that we have here or wherever they are is much more easier. And we've been able to do that. We have formed a platform called Aided Learning. We've had the best of the best for even not only in animation or something, the other disciplines as well. We've been able to do that, and this new concept of this multidisciplinary education, I think that also will be good because there has to be conversation between departments. It can't be just that animation has to be only talking about, they need to know what's happening in technology, they need to know what's happening in on finance management, certain things where you're able to pick and choose the kind of modules that are required, I think may solve some of the problem. And with starting from school education, yes, I think this can be long addressed.
One thing that we obviously didn't get enough time, we're almost run out of time, but I think research, is one aspect that we don't see enough of in India. That how does one look at pure research if one wants to do a research on gaming technology or in animation or a new production pipeline? How do we inculcate that? And I, in fact, Diwakar, I might want to ask you that for some of these higher level kind of skills, when it talks about game design or doing a research on a new technology, right? How do you groom talent for that, and how do you mentor talent for that? Is there a structured course for something like that? That if I want to become, a top level game designer, is there a course where I can upskill myself? And how is it offered in your training institutions?
It is. I actually want to continue addressing something that was talked by Hanif. One thing that we've done, and again, it also sort of feeds back into your question. We've started a very unique student initiative work program. The fears that students have, am I making the right decision? All that stuff that we just talked about, the fear of failure. So how do we address that as well at the same time? So right. What we've done is we've created this brand new program called the Student Work Initiative Program, that allows students, and we're probably one of the only schools in Canada at this point, again, that is doing that. And I'm not sure if it's, again, possible in India because of the scale and the size of the populations there, but we've worked with several studios here. We're working with about 15 studios here that take our students into their studios, even during this COVID period, particularly during this COVID period, where real life projects being done by the studios like Amazon or Fish Flight or Animism, ILM right now, we've started with Bardell as well, where students are actually going onto the studios physically or online and working on real life projects with the studios while they're studying with us. So what that really does is we want them to really understand what the industry is doing while they're with us. It's great hunky-dory to talk about, all the great stuff in class, but if you're not really applying that right away, you're going to struggle. So we allow our students to go on and do that right away while they study with us.
So I think that's again something that we are not seeing enough of in India, which is partnerships between universities and studios.
Correct. So that's very, very crucial. And we're one of the first ones, again, to be able to do that, where we've just sent in about 36 students. Again, the numbers are small. I do apologize because, I can't speak to the volume in India. You have millions of people there. But again, when we talk about even 36 going on in the last 1 month and doing work in the studios, that's a difference to that 36 students, right? They are able to get real life experience while working in a studio. And of course, the thing is that they get paid for it as well from the studios. So if they make a mistake and, they continue to make a mistake and, there's a firing or a hiring going on, they understand real life as a student. So that's something that they got to understand, the real life aspect of it. And that comes from them going into a studio. And I think that's something that, we should all be looking at doing in India as well, where students have an opportunity to work in a studio while studying. So that's what I feel. I mean, that's very crucial to my existence in that sense as well.
There are two initiatives that we are doing at the Media Entertainment Skill Council. One of them is called Vidya Dan, which is essentially where an industry expert comes and donates a certain number of hours, and through that, basically, we are currently doing that. In fact, right now, it's working very well because we are able to access a lot of the experts and they come and talk, and I think that's one of the best forms because you're literally getting to interact with the masters, and that's one thing. The other thing is also that we have which is a lesser known aspect of our policy is the National Apprenticeship Policy, wherein as industry, you are supposed to take on certain amount of people as apprentices, and work on. And again, I think, these are things that are not known or not well publicized. And I think at MESC, we are trying to push and see how we can bring this more in a very structured manner, which means that one of the things that I'm personally very keen on working is basically have a pool of apprentices registered, that every institution today said that this is my next batch passing out. in 3 months from now, 6 months from now, and studios can then look at that and say, hey, you know what, I can pick up 10 students, I can pick up 15 students, from that, and actually groom them or actually give them an opportunity. So it's in a way, it's about matchmaking, so we are seeing the demand side and we're seeing the supply side, and marry the two, and in some way formalize this, so it's almost like a LinkedIn, if I were to say, for on both sides, So, I'm kind of just, we need to close the session, but, just broadly, I just want to summarize. I think our biggest challenge right now in India is twofold. One is scale. I think we need to groom a large number of people quickly, right? And that's where, basically those numbers will come from, obviously, the rural India. And I think we need to really address on how can we reach that segment of our audience today, or that student population, and how do we enable them? I think online education has definitely shown us the way that that's possible, and suddenly you have access, and I think there, one of the biggest enablers is 4G and 5G. I think that's thanks to technology. I think it's that penetration has been very, very rapid, so that's definitely one thing. The other, I think, is the other end of the spectrum, which is the niche, which is the top game designers, the animation film directors, even I think producing is an art. And I think it's again, not well touched upon in India. I mean, today, if I want to upskill myself as a game producer, I don't know where to go, right? So that's again something that we need to focus on, that how do we start grooming this, and we are hoping that at the National Center of Excellence that we are now planning to have, some of these things we would start addressing this, and I think that's the other segment. I think we are doing fairly well at the middle, I think core skilling is definitely happening. A lot of that structure is being brought in. MESC is doing a great job of formalizing that. The NEP is now really looking at it at the school level, and I think it's a fantastic initiative. For the first cut of NEP, what we are seeing, it's remarkable. It's taken a lot of time to get there, but I think it will want to look at, saying that, yes, that's something that we need to work upon. The framework is there, and we take that framework and expand it. This is version 1.0, we now need to put it into practice and then see, okay, what do we now need in version 2.0, and take it from there and see and improve on that. But I think there's also an opportunity to, partner with institutions like VFS, like Diwakar's institution, to help jumpstart some of these things, particularly at the high end of the segment, because that's a skill, where I think there is a great opportunity to partner, at the niche skills. And I think that is something that maybe conversations need to start happening with universities, with institutions in India, and the counterparts outside of India, and see whether there is a marriage possible. The other thing is also some food for thought there for the educationists here, is to look at a credit system, maybe a shared credit system between India and the UK and the Canada and the States, where if a student has done certain number of hours of education here, can he then automatically apply to a university outside? I know that there are some institutions who are already working on that, but I also feel we need that kind of a system also coming in, in all aspects of our education, starting from the 10th plus. So after the 12th grade of education, we need that kind of a system. So hopefully it will allow people to switch if they want to. Right now, we are still rigid in terms of our path. It's like a railroad. Once you're on a track, you can't switch, So yes, I think while we are in a very, very exciting space, a lot of work still needs to be done. And I think as industry, our role and onus on us is even more to see how we can, help increase this workforce. Somewhere it will also serve our own needs. So, I think that's some work for us. I think Anil wants to have one final say. Anil, you want to, before we...
I just wanted to actually add on to what, you were saying, Munjal. What we've done is we've actually created this interface between industry and right now it's at a pilot stage where it's for our students, where about 20,000 students have uploaded almost about 85,000 projects. And industry comes in and we use this as a platform to get them to recruit. But right. This platform, we are happy to share it with MESC, and it can be opened up to a lot more people. And any child can come on, put their portfolio there. We've put in a lot of technology to give the kid feedback in terms of the child shares the source files, the AI analyzes how well this kid has designed this stuff. And even as we speak, Munjal, we've got 4,060 job offers from companies on this platform made.
Okay.
So we're happy to share this because, we've made these investments because we've got scale. If I have 30,000 kids, then I need to be very, very technology oriented. So we'd be more than happy to share this with anybody. And especially with MESC. I think Anuj has been already speaking with MESC in a very big way. So this is already available, Munjal, and it can be done very, very quickly.
Right.
To create this interface.
I mean, we can take this offline, but just to know that some of these things are already been worked upon, and I think it's about operationalizing some of these. At MESC, a lot of these initiatives you will see them rolling out. But I think I would just want to take this platform, just to say that we need more industry participation. We need more Jeshes, more Pankajes to come on and actually devote their time. Because that 30 minutes, that 1 hour session with you guys, believe me, it's going to inspire a lot of kids.
Happy to do that anytime, Munjal. I'm sure, it's just happy to do that, man. And as many times as is needed, because we need this workforce, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
I think somewhere we have our selfish goals as well. So I think might as well do that, and I think it'll be great. The more we interact with these students, I think the better it is for the entire ecosystem.
Absolutely.
So we have run out of time. Thank you so much. You guys have been an absolutely amazing panel. And I wish we could go on for another hour, but that's the time we have today. Thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure having you there.
Hey, Munjal, thanks so much. And all the panelists, big thank you from FICCI. It was just amazing listening to all of you. The very fact that, the NEP and the thought process has begun. We need to actually consolidate on our energies, help Anil to really see how, that reach that he has created with the rural India, how we actually empower those guys to come and find the right jobs. At the same time, at the top level, as Munjal said, the top of the pyramid also, which is dealt with Colin and Diwakar, how do we actually see both existing or coexisting? The university pipeline and the school pipeline is something that we need to really, really see how much interest we take in this. The end results are going to be, our existence into those pipelines. And I think that's directly proportional. So we are forming a group at FICCI to spearhead this at the school level, at the university level, and informal level as well. And that's why we need to consolidate our thinking and energies, and also look at some of the tie-ups that we are going to do with Research for Resurgence Foundation. They were there on the panel with me yesterday, and also the National Research Foundation that is getting formed out because of national education policy, and push our agenda in terms of AVGC technology, media and entertainment technologies, various other pipeline technologies that we develop, and many other tools that we are capable of developing. And they get funding with university backing is something that we need to really push as an agenda. But you guys have been amazing. I wish as we push this into Facebook and few other targeted areas, the policymakers are going to see it for sure. And many, many institutions are going to see it. And they are going to, come back to ask you how they can actually restructure their programs and schedule this under their proper curriculums that they have. And I think that's where this is going to lead to. This was the last session, and we have a valedictory after this at 7:30. So it's been amazing. Yesterday, we had quite a few universities from Canada and UK in the evening session, because, we had kept this because you can attend. Diwakar and Colin, you had to wake up very early. A big thank you to all of you. And we would want to really see you coming to India and establishing few more centers here, and see how we can help you with that. Again, Munjal, thank you very much. Anil, Jesh, Diwakar, Colin, Pankaj.
Thank you, Ashish.
Yeah.